opportunity of visiting Washington, D.C. last weekend, Charlie and Lauren, and it was to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights March on Washington, the March for Jobs and Freedom. And this weekend, we celebrate Labor Day. And being that they came so close together, I started reflecting on what these two movements stood for. And I couldn't help but think about the great labor leaders like Peter McGuire and the great civil rights leaders who put their lives on the line. Some of them lost their lives for the sheer refusal, and listen to this, you students, the sheer refusal to accept the status quo. Remember that. They may have been separated by time, but they were united in purpose. And the core of the union movement and the civil rights movement is rooted in the notion that if you don't fight for justice and equality, if you don't stand up for our sons and daughters every single day, that we run the risk of the very principles our nation was founded upon, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, being in jeopardy. And so, for those who went before us and fought the battle, we thank them. But you know what? Now it is upon us to carry the torch. It is upon us to secure those rights that unions like yours work so tirelessly to defend. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we dignify our workers with an increase in the minimum wage and tying it to a cost of living. If you're a man or a woman and you work in New Jersey and you get sick or your child gets sick, you shouldn't have to worry about taking a day off and not getting paid for it. You shouldn't have to worry that when you go back to work after you're well, that you could lose your job. And that's why we have to fight to make sure that the over 1 million workers in New Jersey that don't have that protection receive it. And it means that we stand with our brothers and sisters, whether they're in a public union or a private union. Because you know what, Wisconsin and Ohio, that may play well. But you know what, I was born and raised in New Jersey, and that's not how we do business in New Jersey. We stand up for all of our working men and women. Give me one more minute because I got to tell you this. You know, when people complain and they point fingers about unions being the problems, I bristle at that. You know, I learned that lesson early in life. My father emigrated from Italy. He was young, didn't speak any English, and he wanted to be a doctor. But you know what? He had to sacrifice that goal because he had to drop out of high school to support his family in Newark. But he became a butcher, part of the Amalgamated Meat Cutters. And I'll never forget, my father used to come home at the end of the day dead tired. And he would fall asleep on the couch. But you know what? He fell asleep with the sense of security and knowing he had a job that had a living wage because of the union. And so he had the dignity of being able to take care of his family and put a roof over our heads and food on our table. So when people tell me that unions are the problem, unions aren't the problem. I know with every fiber in my being, from my father's example, that unions are not the problem. Unions are the solution. Unions built up the middle class, and we have to support them. And so, let us honor that legacy this Labor Day. Let us honor that legacy. But you know what? Next weekend, when all the parades are over and the sales are gone, we must continue that celebration because now is not the time to reduce celebrating the progress that labor has made to one Monday in September, right? Now, it is said that the dying words, the last words of Peter McGuire were, "The boys of Local 22 need me." And it is said that in Martin Luther King Jr.'s last speech, in his final speech, he encouraged what he described as a dangerous sense of unselfishness. Now, these two men may have been separated by time, but they were united by a common sense of urgency. And so I implore every one of you here and now, today, in this room, for the sake of our children, for the sake of every working man and woman in the state of New Jersey who holds near and dear the belief that equality and justice and dignity that unions have fought for, that we all recommit ourselves to that same sense of urgency today. And thank you very much. Happy